last is about creating meaning. Again, as we said, this is just about planting a small seed. We're getting started without any pressure again. And meaning in this case is beyond pleasure. It's about finding some purpose that keeps us going. As Martin Seligman said, it's a purpose beyond just ourselves and our immediate needs. And so the reality these days is that there are people who are super busy working from home, adjusting to different circumstances. Others who suddenly are without jobs or have jobs suspended, are floating or are retired but can't do their usual activities, and many other options. And so there is that gap in some ways in terms of the ways that people are spending time or the time they have available. But still, no matter what your situation is, the reality is that we're dealing with so much uncertainty these days. Rolling uncertainty, very different from a single tragedy or crisis that then afterwards you're dealing with recovery. We're still rolling with this. We've got mixed emotions. We've got sort of a lack of control of what's happening. And so one way to kind of hold on to something in that, something we intimated about in the first session, is about finding this new bliss. And bliss may seem like a big word, but it really is this idea of, okay, beyond finding joy, which is really in the moment, and then playing and engaging certain things, which is really more engaging, right? This is around how can you perhaps craft something new that might be able to pull you positively going forward. So the question then is what new vision, what new value or goal will make you feel useful, engaged, and inspired? Useful because the case is that most humans want to feel, need to feel that they're capable. And particularly in moments when we feel like we're flailing and we're dealing with something as big as we are right now, much as we're in the same boat, there's a tendency to feel so out of control, so small or helpless. And so trying to orient our visions towards something that can make us feel capable and useful can go a long way to boosting our self-esteem, our confidence, and our motivation going forward. Right? Inspiration is about the moment, but it's also about something in the future. And engagement is, again, trying to find that flow. But once again, there's very much value in being engaged in the moment for something fun. And then there's also value in being engaged more long-term for something that you're perhaps trying to create or offer to others. So the objective is to pull yourself towards that new bliss, right? Something that motivates you towards relevant action for something important for you right now. So you may have had projects before or objectives before that made sense then, but right now may feel empty or just disconnected from the reality. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that they have to go away completely. Just perhaps now is not the moment. But just like these calls came up for us, you know, as we were shifting completely our business objectives, maybe there are things right now that, given the new circumstances, given the new feelings and experiences you're having, suddenly makes sense for you and motivates you to somehow stay busy in a positive way. I have a colleague, a former client and friend, whose own work has nothing to do with what she's doing, but at some point she remembered that she knows how to sew. And so she got a bunch of her friends, and they've been sewing masks for professionals in the medical industry, but they've been making them really sweet, right? They've been using all these patterns for things they were probably going to use for curtains or stuff like that, anything they could find around the house, right? Or get ordered in. But they're all these really beautiful, happy patterns. And she sent me a picture. I'm so proud of her, really, and so impressed by her. It's a way that keeps her busy aside from whatever she has to do work-wise. And she feels like she's doing something to contribute. And of course, it's extremely necessary, right? So that goes to this. It's, you know, what are the new priorities for you, for yourself, for others, personally, professionally, spiritually, right? What now really naturally seems clearer to you or easier or more important to move towards, right? And so the idea is, again, if you put something as a priority, it doesn't mean that you have to, as we say, marry it, right? Just start with a list and then test it out and see. Some of those things you're going to say, well, this is really more for fun. But other stuff you're going to say, hey, you know what? I think there's something I could do with this, even if it's a small craft that somehow helps just me or helps others, who knows? And this is also where it connects to the new. We talked about new interests and hobbies in terms of fun. And so it's very important also to allow those things to be just fun without a purpose. But maybe some of those things you see, it can be put to a purpose as well. There's also now a chance for learning and discovery. We had in our situation here some years ago, given what we do at work, when you start working and you start launching things, it's great, but you end up not having very much time to regularly do all that initial research and discovery that you were doing in the beginning. You end up getting into execution mode. And oddly enough, it was having a rather tragic thing happen for us on a personal level that forced me to have to take time back. But at the same time, then opened up time and opportunity to start to research again in depth, connect and re-inspire myself around what now was key for me, not just with our work, but just in my interests. Out of that came out so much of what we've been doing in the last years. Things that seemed to not make any sense. I suddenly was curious about, I don't know, shamanism in terms of connection to the earth. Then on the other hand, I was looking at neuroscience. Then I was looking at shadow work, which is Jungian psychology, and then, gardening. And suddenly all these different things coalesced into sort of new concepts of value that we could put out into the world. And projects were born. But again, the idea with meaning is don't worry about where it goes. Because when we obsess too much about how it works out, then the ego gets in and then it becomes stressful. It's just about planting those seeds right now. Imagine it's a garden, put those seeds out and see which one of those starts to grow for you. And then the last part is about the future. Just gently, again, we're turning our head a little bit up from just sitting in our homes and in our, how do I say, sometimes the caves and spirals that we get into. It's just looking up a little. And the question around that is, what do you want to position yourself for when this is over? We don't know what the world is going to be like. We don't perhaps even know what we're going to be like, but what do you want to do? Who do you want to be? You don't have to answer that right now, but just let the seed settle and see what comes out. So at the end with everything, make sure to take your time. Don't pressure yourself. As much as possible, what is beautiful about this moment is that instead of rushing to results and measurements and evaluations, we actually have a bit of time. We have no other choice to kind of percolate things. And we'll talk a lot more about that next week, how to continue developing these visions. But for now, just let it settle. And as we say, sometimes the best creative work actually happens when you're just enjoying and you're not trying.